Every single wrestler in WWE goes through a period of inconsistency, of uncertainty. It's part of the fabric of being there. It doesn't matter if you're an opening card person or a main eventer. You're going to experience it at some point. Even Roman Reigns, flying high as he may be at the moment on SmackDown, went through 5 years of purgatory as a failed babyface to get there. You simply cannot escape the erratic nature of WWE's creative mechanisms. It affects everybody. And even though today's subject has only been on the main roster since 2017, she has felt it more than most. I'm Andy for What Culture Wrestling, and this is the secret WWE history of Liv Morgan. The secret history of Liv Morgan ties into the history she has created on WWE screens. It goes all the way back to the early days of her life and the grit, determination, and will to power through that has made her more capable than most of enduring the up and down nature of life as a WWE wrestler, particularly when it comes to creative. You go all the way back to Liv Morgan's life growing up, and she's got one hell of a story. Her father passed away just a few months before she was born. Her mother, as a result of this and having to support 5 kids, had to work 60-hour weeks, and by her mum's own admission, there were times where it was really tough to keep her head above water. Liv has spoken in the past how she'd been 5 years old and there wasn't somebody available in the house to do something as simple as come and check on her and how she's doing on her homework. But she climbed her way out of all of this when she signed with WWE in 2014, which came through her training with personal trainer Joe DeFranco, who had a tangential link, I can't say that word, but had a tangential link to Triple H. The whole thing came together. She got the tryout, she got the call from Canyon Ceman, and she got the contract. It was a way out for the potentially destructive patterns that perhaps waited in other walks of life. And it was a long time goal of Morgan to make it to this stage. She has spoken in the past about how her and her friends would effectively set up what were pretty much makeshift backyard wrestling rings using industrial rope, piles of cushions, and everything else. In fact, let's just take it in her own words and talk about the person specifically that she looked up to. I always pretended to be Lita. All the divas were so glamorous and girly, and I was such a tomboy and didn't have nice clothes. When I saw Lita come out in baggy pants and sneakers wrestling the boys, I thought she was the coolest thing ever. I related to her and thought that she could be my friend. Not a bad role model to have, really. So that inspiration is the conventional side of Liv's journey into pro wrestling. You are a young person who wants to become a pro wrestler, you find one that you really identify with and you follow their lead. That is a tale as old as time, in the words of Steve from Frozen. But there's an unconventional side to this journey as well. Liv has spoken about this in the past. In a podcast interview with Joe DeFranco, she went into greater detail on how she was a high school dropout. She came out of the GED Centre and saw her next move staring at her across the street. And from that interview, these are Liv's words. Across from the centre was a Hooters, and I was like, well, I got nothing else to lose, I'm gonna get a job at Hooters. It was fast money, I left with cash every day, and I was majoring in paralegal studies at a community college. But one day, a wrestler walked in. Enzo Amore walked into Hooters, we made small talk, and I told him I wanted to wrestle. I knew when I was 5 years old I wanted to do it. I was gonna grow up and I was gonna be in WWE. We kept in touch because he trained with you. He got me to come here too. Morgan took that level of macro exposure and her focused approach to training and turned it into a tryout and eventually a WWE contract, a fully fledged career as a pro wrestler. And it's this very approach that, when you consider it and apply it to her creative side of things since she's been in WWE, well, it goes some way to explaining why her brain hasn't started dribbling out of her ear yet and just pooling on the floor. Because when it comes to stop-start pushes and angles that didn't really go anywhere and stuff that didn't quite get off the ground, Liv Morgan is queen. Have you guys ever seen the Live Forever documentary that's on the WWE network? Well, if you haven't, you really should. It's unique in these documentaries because they're always really well made, right? They're always a good watch. At bare minimum, it's a fun way to pass 45 minutes to an hour. But at their very peak, they're great stuff. Legitimately great stuff. Better than the average episode of Raw comfortably. But Live Forever is unique. It's completely unlike anything else on the network. It is one of the most thorough dissections and one of the most damning pieces of content ever produced on the WWE creative system, to the point where I personally can't believe that WWE uploaded this themselves. And in 2020, when news broke that Liv was going to get her own documentary on the network, interest was pretty high, because that's been the case for pretty much everything she's done throughout her career. She was a cult favourite in the post-Horsewoman era of NXT, and the Riot Squad weren't always the most strongly pushed act, but they had a big cult following. And of course there are other things as well, like how long have online fans been clamouring for Liv to be attached to Bray Wyatt's act as Sister Abigail? That space has kind of now been filled by Alexa Bliss and Lily and the Firefly Funhouse and everything else, but it was there for a long time. That clamour was real. Hell, even when Ruby Riott and Liv came back together last year, there was a clamour for that as well. A lot of people were really happy about them coming back as a tag team after the split of the Riot Squad the previous year. And it's been a pattern for Liv. She's never been the strongest pushed person in the company. She's never been a regular title contender or someone at the very top of the card, but she has always carried a strong crowd connection, and that is vital. And it's a good job as well, because some of the stuff on Live Forever is legitimately shocking. You get just gut-wrenching moments, really, like the split of the Riot Squad. They're all there in tears. I think Liv's crying within 4 minutes of this documentary even starting. Then you've got other moments like Liv being away from TV for 3 or 4 months, coming back to do a dark match with Ember Moon, getting ready, getting hyped up, ready to go, let's do it. Getting to the gorilla position and being told by Michael Hayes, nope, the match is cancelled, just 30 seconds before they were due to walk out. There's also things like the Lana storyline falling apart before it ever really got started, and of course the endless hours of sitting backstage wondering why you're not being used, eating catering, goofing off with your colleagues because that's all you've got to keep saying, wondering even if you're still going to be employed in the near future. But the thing about Liv Morgan shining through all of this is that she gets up again, she dusts herself off, she perseveres, she stresses how grateful she is to be doing her dream job in the first place. The documentary closes with some words from Ruby Riott, who has of course since been released from WWE. She's speaking shortly after her and Liv came back together, and I'm going to read these sentences to you. "We've been given the ball and they're never going to see it again. We're too hungry to let the Riot Squad fall through the cracks of history. We're not going to let that happen again." Those words are obviously a lot sadder today than they were back then, because Ruby's gone from the company. But Liv closes the documentary feeling refreshed. It's a new lease on life, a new opportunity to start again and build something new. But you look at the present day, and Ruby's gone. Obviously, Liv is working as a solo act. She's on SmackDown trading wins back and forth with Carmella. But to what end? It would appear at first glance that the pattern is repeating again. Whatever the case, however, Liv Morgan's hidden and unique history will surely inform a bright future, whether that's in pro wrestling or out of it. She lives on a farm now, as you've probably seen from her social media activity. She's studying for her real estate licenses and potentially safeguarding her own future should the worst happen to her in WWE. And it's very clear from all of this, from listening to interviews and watching the documentary and everything else, that Liv Morgan is going to be just fine. Younger stars are realizing at an earlier age than ever before that filling up the bump card sometimes isn't worth it. And regardless of her lifelong dedication to the cause, WWE would be very wise to make the most of Liv Morgan while they've still got her. She's already endured more creative mishaps than most. Maybe it's time to iron that out a little bit. Anyway guys, that's it. My take on the matter is done, but as always, I'm interested in what you guys have to say, so let us know down in the comment section below. After that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Then you can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray, where you can tell me how wrong I am. Goodbye.